I've been fiddling about with productivity, so to speak, for a while, and I was first introduced to formal coaching in around 2015 when I came back from a 3-year period of living in Malaysia and needed some guidance and direction as to what to do with my career mainly. And I was introduced to this exercise by an excellent coach called Alexis Hudson, and she called it the balance wheel exercise. It's got lots of other names, and I just wanted to talk about this from a perspective of 10 years down the line. And it's designed to get you to think about the different areas of your life and trying to get balance. And this is what I came up with in November 2015. So the yellow is what I thought of, or thought of where I was on one day, and then the next day I thought I was actually somewhere slightly different when it came to my relationship with my wife and my friends and family. So that was in 2015, and you can see that the career quadrant segment was clearly low in comparison to the others, and everything else was reasonably good. Money was pretty good, health was kind of middling, friends and family and romantic relationship I upgraded the next day, personal growth was pretty high, fun and environment were kind of pretty good. So I repeated this exercise this week, so 9.5 years down the line. I used the same categories, so the same 8 categories as in the first exercise, and actually if you compare them, they're pretty similar. You have growth and romantic relationship being pretty good, fun being reasonable, physical environment. The difference, I think, is moving to the Highlands of Scotland, which is a gift. Career, virtually, completely non-existent in formal terms. Retired. Income, negligible. So this is interesting. The money as a consequence has gone down a bit. I've had some health problems over the last few years, and my health is almost certainly worse than it's ever been. And friends and family, there's a little bit of obstacle here. But what I'm kind of interested in is that the pattern is basically the same. So I'm wondering whether the exercise actually looks at the subject rather than those different segments. What I mean is that, is it more an interrogation of who I am rather than where I am at a particular point in time? So will I always have relatively high growth or romance quadrant because that's what I gravitate towards, or that's what I will prioritize? Will I always kind of languish in the career area? Well, I don't know the answer, but I certainly feel differently about the exercise now, 10 years on. When I first did it, I thought it was brilliant, and I got my trainees to do it, and I actually did it again, or came across this exercise again into 2021 when I did a course by Michael Hyatt, quite a well-known course called Best Year Ever, and that includes this Wheel of Life exercise. It's got different names, the segments, and it gives you an overall score. And I was interested that Ali Abdaal has also talked about this exercise a couple of times recently, and he uses a slightly different structuring of the segments, 9 segments in 3 broad areas, but the principles are the same. So I've come across it 3 times in the kind of formal productivity area. I really liked it. I did a postgraduate certificate in coaching from Birkbeck University, which was excellent a few years ago. So I have a qualification in coaching. I did a lot of sort of young doctor supervision and career guidance, I hope, when I would use this exercise a lot. And actually, I didn't really think that the categories mapped that well to individual people. So I started off by having 5 fixed categories and 3 categories that you should decide or label yourself. And then eventually it just turned into 8 question marks, and you labelled whatever you wanted to represent what you were interested in. As I said, I feel differently about it now, and I've been trying to work out what a more representative model might be. And I think the thing that bothers me is that in the Wheel of Life model, the segments are kind of all equal. And I think that they're not all equal. So I'm going to veer away from the standard productivity space, the secular, often commercial productivity space, and veer off into an Islamic perspective. So feel free to stay or not stay. And I make no apologies for this. This is my world view, and I find a lot of value in it, and I think it is something that I shouldn't be ashamed to talk about. And I think it's also interesting to play around with it a little bit, just to see how it might adapt to modern life. So this is just actually my first version of trying to remap this Wheel of Life. And in the middle, I'm actually going to write Ain for Abd. So Abd means slave, which is a funny thing to put at the very centre of a life wheel. But for me, it is actually the key. The key is understanding one's relationship, our relationship with the creator. And we are the created. We are not the creator. We are almost nothing in cosmic terms. And that fact is quite difficult to get your head around and to accept. But once we do, once we submit to that fact, the universe becomes a completely different place. And actually for many people, it becomes an ecstatic place. The whole universe is just a gallery of manifestation of beauty, but it relies on us putting the Abd in the middle. So we're flawed, we're human, and the practices that we kind of need to draw ourselves back, I would say, are the fard practices, meaning the obligatory practices. And this supports us and cleans us, and actually is all we really need to fulfill our covenant, to fill our contract. And it is the foundation on which we feed our heart, with a capital H, which is what sustains our recognition and enactment of our slavehood. So it's important. The word slave clearly has a lot of connotations and a lot of associations. I'm talking about being a slave of Allah, a slave of Abd Allah, not a slave of any human being. So, and this fard section could even be all the way surrounding Abd. It could be all that is necessary. So I don't know exactly what dimensions this should have, but that's one representation. Okay, and then inside that, on top of that, we could have sunnah, which are the habits and the traditions that are carried down to us, which include different types of prayer, includes smiling at a stranger, include playing with children, include giving people your full undistracted attention, include brushing your teeth. All sorts of things are within our prophetic sunnah. And on top of that, I'm going to put as a kind of keystone the nafil, or the totally voluntary behaviours, elements. And these are actually the three different types of salah, the three different types of rak'ah, the fard, the sunnah and the nafil. So this could be doing something that's not recorded at all in any of the hadith, in any of the traditions. It could be, anything, just saying something nice. It could be singing a song, which I'll come back to in a second. So that, I'm not sure, but I think that represents the structure of me, or the structure of self. I struggle with the relationship between self and other, and self on its own isn't really enough, and being completely externally facing it isn't right either. So there's another layer beyond the immediate self, which I kind of think is most represented by the word khalifa. So this responsibility we have to look after the earth and the resources that we have been kind of given, but we're only given temporarily. We have to understand that we're temporary, we're extremely temporary, but our effects can be long lasting, and we should try and improve a place rather than destroy it or reduce it. So with the next layer for me could be around neighbours and charity. And I'm going to represent that in blue. And then on top of that again, something around being reflective and being religious in groups, or being conscious in a group. And I'm actually going to put the music and art as an almost, not final expression, but as a very high level of expression of our love of Allah, our love of God. And it's not very well drawn. So we'll try and draw another version of it as soon as I can. But it actually does turn out to be the colours of the rainbow. And these colours and these themes I actually use in a different context, which is an education context. And this is the way that I am trying to bring together the productivity domain and the kind of education domain, particularly around home education, because these 7 colours represent 7 strands in our home education, which are astromath, or maths, depending on what country you're in, husbandry and trade, which includes most applied sciences, language and literature, which is absolutely key to understanding most things, movement and sport, which is kind of the midpoint, the balance point, the thing that keeps us in tune. Music and art, and music in particular is a hill that I will die on, hopefully not literally. neighbours, neighbourhoods and charity, nature. I think that's a purification function, and neighbours includes anyone that you're next to, not just people that you have things in common with. And religion and reflection. So my wheel of life is a 7-coloured, asymmetrically segmented circle. So it's still a wheel, I suppose. It's trying to integrate 7 strands of learning, which I think are balanced, I think are powerful, I think are appropriate, not just for me, but also my children and any other children. And the difference between that and the segmental scoring, they're not all equal. The centre is the abd. The centre is the abd. I'm noticing actually that I didn't put husband in there. So husbandry and trade might actually be in the very centre. Yeah, not so. Remember, this is a first draft, so and also it's an experiment. It is not what I think to be the declarative truth. So the wheel of life, it's an asymmetrically segmented circle. It consists of 7 themes, blocks, strands that I could give a numerical score to. I don't think they are numerically valid, because I don't think it's a rational variable. It's not a ratio variable. Sorry, it's not a ratio variable, because if you score 3 in the abd section, I think that is not the same as being 3 times less valuable than scoring a 9 in the nature section. Because if your heart is strong and, I mean, pure, then in a way nothing else matters. Everything else, whatever you do, you might have had a stroke, be completely limited physiologically, unable to achieve in the everyday sense of the word, not able to work or earn, that you may be in complete harmony with the universe. So I don't think these scores are appropriate. The segments are not equal. Having said that, it's not a bad idea to intermittently check yourself and see where you feel you might be in terms of, is it strong, is it weak? And maybe I'll try and work on what that might look like with this odd looking segmented circle. But I'm sort of trying to move away from this uniform, and I know it's a circle, but it feels too linear to me. I don't think the world works like this. The world works in magic numbers, exponential growth, pi, e. What are these things? They're not just straightforward linear progressions. So I'm trying to move away from that towards something that is, I don't know, more magical, whatever you make of that. I don't think that necessarily negates it, just because I use the word magical and I'm talking about it being unexplainable, either in current understanding, possibly in any human understanding ever. I don't think that's implausible, that we will never get a full understanding of the laws of the universe. And I actually think it's quite likely that will never ever happen. We will either destroy everything or ourselves first, or it's just, it's not implausible for me for those hidden truths to, in their absolute forms, to be unknowable by human beings. That does not mean we don't try and understand the truth better. That does not mean we don't do science. That does not mean we don't try and improve. And maths brilliant. Astronomy, brilliant. Husbandry, brilliant. Trade, all of this stuff. They're foundations for understanding ourselves, understanding our communities, understanding our universe. So that is where I have got to in this productivity journey so far. I hope that has given you some food for thought. It would be great to get a conversation going, and I wish you peace.